welcome to episode 23 of our regular Guitar Hangs. Nick, Granville, and Wellington, myself in Auckland, and we've got a very special guest here, Mr. Glyn, all the way from Muriwai, joining us. He's been a long-time supporter of the podcast, and it's only fitting that, he's our first guest. I'm glad we could make this happen. So Glyn has just wound Nick and myself some pickups, and we thought we'd, make today's episode all about pickups. We have an expert in the house, and we can ask him all the questions that it's us asking the questions today.
Yeah, I'm glad we've got an expert because I don't know shit about this stuff. I kind of can hack them in place, but that's about it. Whereas, so glad to have an expert here to help us. And you know quite a bit about pickups too, I think, Warren.
Me, only from what he's told me. I have my chats with him and I ask him, things that, only he can answer. So, yeah, I'm glad to, have that resource available. And also, because of him, I get to try out stuff, which is, always, you can talk about it all you want. But when you listen to it, I think that's the proof is in listening. So, you want to tell us what you've got on that guitar? It's a nice looking guitar, by the way.
So this is my Porritt Smith Custom 22 soap bar. It had 3 P90s in it. I have them here, and they were quite. I always found this guitar just lacked kind of top end on it. It always sounded like there was that sparkle that you want from like even a humbucker, right? Like a humbucker should have a sparkly top end to some degree, not sparkly like a Strat or a Tele. But so I talked to Rob Matthews, a great tech in Wellington, and he said, why don't you just get Glyn to change the magnets out? He goes, because those look like really big ceramic magnets, which are probably pushing it hard. And then I had a conversation with Glyn, and he said, have you we talked about various options I'd tried, and in the end he said he'd been toying around with this idea of a low wind P90, 5%, 10% under, to sort of shift the EQ more than anything. And I said, that sounds like something we should try. So we chucked them in, and I just, from first chord I played, and it was all real dodgy. Like it was barely soldered in place. And I played the first chord and I was like, that's what's been missing, kind of. It has that again, do you know what I mean? So super happy with it. So these are the Blue 90s. I think that's what they're called, Blue 90s.
They are.
Right?
They are now called Blue 90s, yeah.
Are they?
So they're official and out in the world.
They are. Nice. They're on my website and everything now.
Yeah, so it's official. So this one here is slightly hotter. I believe it's 7 point something K, and these are about 6 and a bit, whatever it is, 6.5, 6.8. So you get that bridge with just a little more winding where it needs it. They balance really well. Which to me is a big thing, right? When I go to a bridge pickup on a guitar, I don't want it to sound like a different guitar. I still want it to sound like the same guitar. So maybe Glyn, you could talk a little bit about these and about kind of what the concept was and how they work.
Yeah, I mean the main thing with when you phone me up is you're really, really good at describing sound. And that's
really,
which is
I always thought I didn't.
I know, and because all our vocabulary's visual, it's a really tricky thing. But no, you're good. You're good at it, and it was good because it's hard to understand what somebody wants sometimes. But yeah, no, you use real nice words that are in general use because some people make them up. So that was good, having an idea what you wanted. And then Rob's idea of changing the magnets is good, but it's we might end up chasing our tail, I thought, on that. We might end up not quite getting it right and then so I thought if let's just start again. And then we can just go, right, I know all this is going to work. I'm not trying to fudge something else. That's for something, it's for a different purpose. That's what they weren't designed for what you want.
So what magnets do they have in them? And Alnico 2 or Alnico 5?
5. No, they're Alnico 5.
Alnico 5.
Because you'll get more sparkle off 5s.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, they're not, scooped is too strong a word for Alnico 5, but it's kind of that, compared to 2, it's got a bit more high-end bite and a bit more low-end oomph. But basically, it's a P90 that's been backed off. The winding's been backed off.
Still has that push of a P90 though. To me, it doesn't. So someone described it on my YouTube channel today as sounding like a fatter strat. I've had that generally seems to be the thing that people are saying, but it's still, to me, they still feel like P90s. They don't feel like I've gone to a strat pickup, but they've got, that push. So on Eco 5, underwound a little bit. Anything else with that? Like any type of, is it the normal kind of wire that you would use on a P90 and all that sort of stuff?
It is. It really is, yeah. It was just a case of just shifting that EQ one way, and lessening that mid-range woody clunk that P90s have, just taking that down probably more than anything else, really. Now, see, P90s have quite a unique magnetic field. If you look at the coil of a P90, it's almost indistinguishable from a Jazzmaster.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, because they're big honking pickups.
It's a wide flat coil, but a Jazzmaster's got the magnet inside the coil, or magnets inside the coil, whereas a P90's got these magnets outside, and the way they are oriented, it generates quite a wide magnetic field. So they hear quite a lot of string. So they're a very, very different pickup to a Jazzmaster. With a pickup, it's like a guitar and amp. If you're trying to make a sound, you've got to take the amp and the guitar into consideration.
Yeah.
It's a shame they just measured in K ohms, but there you go. That's how it is.
It doesn't really tell the true picture, I know, but sometimes it gives people a kind of an idea, at least. It's interesting because this guitar is kind of unique in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a maple neck guitar, so you kind of might think, oh, well, Strat, but glued in for a start, which changes the properties, right? But it's also a mahogany body with a maple cap. So it's kind of Gibson and Fender-y and things. So that was probably why I think it was, because, mahogany people would typically say is warmer sounding. So I think that's why it felt like it needed more sparkle from the pickups. And they really work great. I mean, they're awesome. I'm really super stoked with them.
See, and the other thing that makes it easy winding a pickup for you is I know you're playing quite well. Because
I'm sorry.
Because you're on the telly every day. I see it all the time. So it actually makes it relatively easy to get an idea where someone's coming from.
It's funny, the whole YouTube thing, isn't it? Like, I thought about it a lot, and I think, like, the way I present that stuff is very different from how, like, almost every other gig I do is. Like, I don't get to solo that much on gigs. I got a gig coming up in a month with the Christchurch Symphony playing with all these singers, and I was looking through, they sent the music through last night, which is really early. You don't normally get it this far in advance. I think there's 28 songs and I have 8 bars of guitar solo the entire show. So I was like, actually, I think I'm going to take this guitar down and kind of do the fat Strat thing, because a lot of it would really suit this pickup. This kind of sound, because a lot of it's all rhythm guitars, Tina Turner things, and I get to play Taylor Swift, which I've never done before. With an orchestra, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to go. But they're really interesting pickups, and like I said, it still has that P90 push. It doesn't feel like a humbucker, and it doesn't feel like a single coil. To me, it kind of bridges that gap in a nice way. Some P90s can be just as hard hitting as a humbucker, and a lot of the times, which can suit some styles of music. So I went with 500K pots in these CTS. I'm curious about a treble bleed on this, actually. I'd be interested to know your thoughts, because I find it does get very muddy when you turn down. So the top end's kind of gone a little bit, and I find P90s generally tend to engage with the pot in a way that makes that happen. So what value any ideas of what value to go for on a treble bleed, or how to do it?
I would talk to Warren about that.
We've actually got a switch on this guitar, so we can switch the treble bleed on and off. So we're gonna get into that.
That's a good idea.
Get into the weeds.
Do I want to drill another hole in the guitar?
You could put it on a push pot. Your tone knob, for example, that could just be a switch.
Yeah, it's a good idea, because sometimes I like that kind of darker. Idea, gives you another tonal option, doesn't it?
Totally. Tell me something. Can you do the neck and bridge on that?
Neck and bridge?
Yeah.
No, you can't.
No, yeah.
You can. There is actually a super switch, and when I first got the guitar, that's how it was wound. It was It was neck and middle, and neck and bridge,
Right.
the original pickups. But this guitar got butchered by a local tech in Wellington. Not Rob Matthews. Rob knows this stuff. Another guy's a bit rough around the edges. Let's just say that much. He was the one who put the black covers on the pickups,
Right.
and discarded the cream ones, and he rewired the guitar so that it was treble pickup. He took the middle pickup out. I don't know why. He took the middle pickup out, and it went bridge. Then it went bridge and neck, and then it went middle. Sorry, neck. And then the next one was neck pickup, but with some capacitor that wound off all the treble. And then the next one was the neck pickup, but with that honky out of phase sound. And I was like, I didn't want that. Like, what are you doing? Especially the dark one.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, but you jazz guys, you like that really dark arch top jazz guitar sound. And I'm like, no. So it's nice to finally have it back to how it was meant to be.
Right.
So I went with regular strat wiring.
Right. Do you use the middle pickup by itself?
I don't, but I actually quite like this. Like I'm finding I'm actually kind of going to it a little bit. Kind of reminds me a little bit of that sort of Bryan Adams thing, you know, Keith Scott, the great guitar player too. That sort of sound, you know what I mean?
Stop before we get a copyright strike.
Yeah. That shit's out of control now on YouTube, man. And every video I put up, I get ping. The other day I played Star Wars, the theme from Darth Vader, and the Prague Symphony Orchestra got tagged on it as being their recording, and I'm like, it's just me playing guitar. Come on, go out of control. Yeah. So tell me about this guitar you've got. You've got some new pickups in there too.
So this has now become like a test bed of sorts. It was the same guitar I had the EMGs on the last episode.
That's the Eric Johnson?
It is, yeah, the Eric Johnson strat, the least modded of the lot. So these are a new set of strat pickups that Glyn has just found. I think they're called the Kahus.
Called Kahu.
Yeah, Kahu.
Yeah.
I think all
it's a Kahu. Is that how you spell it? What does it mean?
Yeah, well, all my strat pickups are named after New Zealand birds, and so
it's a bird, isn't it? That's
and so the Kahu's is a harrier hawk. They're quite big. They're predatory birds. I see them across the road from my house every day.
Nice. So, I just thought, in case we've got people who aren't from New Zealand, we'll be like, "What the hell is that?" You know. So Kahu.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I mean, they're a bit telly-ish, I think, because he's got the bridge plate underneath the bridge pickup, just like a telly. And neck and middle are kind of, same gauge as a telly pickup.
Yeah, the bridge is by telly. It's more broadcaster.
Right.
Telly's a bit hotter, would you say?
Yeah, tellies are kind of weird because if you say vintage Telecaster pickup, that's actually quite a confusing term because usually vintage means less powerful, but the very first lot had quite a bit of welly in them for the broadcaster ones, and then they very soon changed them. So there was the broadcaster one, and then it's actually wound quite a bit more than the broadcaster would have been, but it's that kind of vibe really.
So DC windings wise, what are we looking
about 11,
around 11 on the bridge,
about 11k on the bridge.
And neck and middle are
they're more around 7.5.
Right. And Alnico.
But all Alnico 5,
yeah.
And then the bridge one has that steel plate which changes the magnetic field in a few. Well, it actually increases the inductance in the coil slightly as well, but also broadens the magnetic field a little bit. So if you think of it pushing the magnetism up the sides a bit more.
So, speaking of to the sound, when it pushes that, you're saying it's pushing the magnetic field up around the sides a little more. What does that do to the sound?
If you think of a normal strat, hearing quite a small amount of string. So if you broaden that, then you're going to hear more string. You hear more string, then you're going to get more harmonic.
Right.
You got it right in front of you there, yeah. So it fills it out. The idea of this bridge pickup really is to have a useful bridge pickup that can be, a go-to, like a HSS, like a go-to rhythm or lead pickup, really.
Yeah, I can attest to that. So I'll show you a few sounds. So this is like just the clean channel with a tube screamer in the front, like a starting point, That's your bridge pickup.
That's the bridge pickup.
Oh, sorry, that's the neck.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound like a bridge pickup to me, but...
Yeah, and that's the bridge. So now this is like typically what I do is I just wind the tone down a little bit because I don't really like bridge pickups wide open. But considering it's got that plate, it's quite... It just makes me pick a little bit lighter than I normally would. But once I roll down that tone, it's got all the fatness. I think what the tone knob's doing, it's lowering the resonant peak of the pickup, right? Effectively.
Yeah.
So if it's like got like a high mid thing, that's like slowly bringing it more.
Sorry, can you say that again when you
dump when you dump the tone control down, it's basically moving the resonant peak to a lower frequency. At least that's my understanding of it. Because if you listen to like this, it's almost like a wah going like wah, like where the mid-range bump is just traveling frequency-wise. So
yeah, so I was going to say you get some cool effects out of that, right?
Yeah. That's what I think.
So you forgot your wah-wah at the gig and you can kind of get away with it.
I think that's what like Danny Gatton and Roy Buchanan would do with the telly. I think they had like some,
Danny Gatton for sure.
Yeah. They had like a big capacitor value, so it would go like really dark and then like wind it open. So the whole thing of rolling down the tone, it matches better with the other pickups for me. Otherwise, if it's wide open, you have this. Suddenly, like all the bottom's gone and so like a little bit.
Nice to have that option, right?
It is totally.
Say you had a gig where you had to play the James Bond theme, and you want that brighter kind of thinner thing.
Now, here's where it comes in useful is like if you've got the volume rolled off, till around there. Now you can. All that sparkliness.
The telly thing that you were talking about before, right?
Yep.
But could that be part of your treble bleed working? Because if the way I understand a treble bleed, right, is that it's letting the treble through. So really what you're doing is turning down mid and bass. So you're not only bringing your volume down because a guitar's a mid-range instrument, but you're thinning out the sound in the process. So by thinning it out with that plus that tone thing you're doing,
the treble bleed is basically like business class for the highs. I think the lows and mids have to go through the pot, but then it's like there's a fast track lane for you to just go. It's kind of
they sneak through, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is without any treble bleed. Now my volume is around 6. Actually, let's do it on the neck. You'll kind of hear it much better over there. So that's no treble bleed. Now I've put 2 different treble bleed circuits. I've got the Scott Henderson one and the Andy Timmons one just to, see what they sound like. So this one's the no treble bleed. Here's the Scott Henderson one. And here's the Andy Timmons one. I think that one's kind of more designed for like humbuckers and those hot cruiser single coils that he uses. So in this context, I'm much preferring the Scott Henderson one because the lows kind of.
So it's like much fuller sounding, right?
Much fuller sounding, yeah. That could be.
Just changing the value? Is it just changing the value of the resistor? Is that what you're doing to get?
No, they're two different networks. So it's a combination of resistors and capacitors going on here. So now the Sir treble bleed for years used to be a 680 picofarad capacitor and a 150k resistor in parallel. Just that across the in and out lugs of your pot. So apparently the Scott Henderson one puts a 120k resistor in series with that network. So you've got that 680, 150 in parallel and a 120 in series with that whole thing. And that goes across the 2 lugs. And what that 120 is doing, it's kind of chilling out the effect of that treble bleed. So if it's like, coming on too strong, then that 120 is going to like damp it down a little bit. And apparently also the taper of the pot changes. The Andy Timmons one, on the other hand, is some variation of the Kinman circuit, which is, I think, 150k resistor and, let me get this right, a 1000 PF capacitor in series. Not parallel, in series, so like resistor. And that's going across the 2 lugs like that. So in this context, I think that Andy Timmons one would be much better off in a humbucking scenario, or where he rolls his volume down on a distorted sound to get a clean, and it seems to work really well for him. in this context, I think if I was going to do a treble bleed, I'd probably lean towards the Henderson one. So
Right.
I'll just go between no treble bleed and the Henderson one for now on a few different sounds. So like say you pile on a bunch of, overdrive and you roll down, that's the Henderson one on. If I take it off, you'll hear it instantly. And not to say that, you suddenly you've got a bad sound or whatever. It's just a different thing, So I use this all the time. And then it's nice to just have that on a tap, and it's almost like having a treble boost built in.
It does change the feel of the pot, though, if you're doing swells.
Yeah, it does. I noticed that.
Right.
It doesn't come in as much. A swell isn't as much of a swell.
Yeah, you can try
because
that.
you're not starting from such a low point, I think, is what it is.
Yeah.
You can hear that's kind of going like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is without any treble. It comes on a little bit, But I think the Henderson one is kind of designed to not really mess with the taper as much. Because if you're used to rolling down by a certain thing, like almost subconsciously, you don't want to really, mess with that much.
Yeah.
Like, see here. Okay. So the volumes are kind of like, it's only the treble.
Yeah.
Whereas the Timmins one, you'll hear like the high mids just come out, Here we go. See, it just gets like, that nasal thing comes out. Which is, you can totally use that, and especially like with a fuzz or something, like. It's slightly more aggressive, like you go back to the Henderson one. See, the high mids are not as, forward. The Timmins one does have that. That sort of thing. So, I mean, it's nice to have them both on a switch, so if you can, suddenly get extreme amounts of treble all of a sudden if you need them. And like, say, really clean, this is just the RC into the clean channel. So take it down to around like 7. No treble beat. That's the Henderson one. That's the Timmins one. So you can hear slight shifts, in the high mid range.
Yeah, the Henderson one works with those pickups really well, though, doesn't it? It's just like So I'm curious, Glyn, those pickups, I guess the idea, especially having that bridge pickup, is like a rock kind of tone generally, but for someone who still wants that single coil bite and not a humbucker, right?
And the feel. Which is the thing
it's going to push, isn't it?
And the way a pickup reacts under your pick, it's the humbucker is so different. So that's what I was thinking of making, because let's face it, a Strat bridge pickup isn't that great.
It's not my favorite at all. I don't know. I just don't like it.
Sorry, Warren, but so I reckon it's fair game to mess with that one.
I always end up like cranking the height on a Strat bridge pickup and rolling the tone knob down. That seems to kind of work for me.
It's all compromise stuff, though,
exactly,
isn't it? You're not dealing with something that's great in the first place. Yeah. So that's what I was trying to do. Is I really like that early broadcaster pickup, and I experimented quite a lot. And I thought, well, I'll make it more than that, because I didn't really want it to twang. We're kind of going for the opposite of that. Twang's the problem.
It does.
So, yeah.
It does do that though.
Oh no, I still want it to be a Strat. It needs to be a Strat.
It's got all that if it needs it, and it's nice to have it.
It sounds like a fat Strat, doesn't it? It's like kind of fat Strat's kind of like the territory this is going for. This sounds very different.
Yeah,
I think with treble bleeds, Nick, if you want to experiment, just run 2 wires out from the in and the out leg of your volume control. So if you take 2 wires out of your guitar, and then you can just connect whatever you like to that.
That's what I thought. A couple of alligator clips, and then I can just kind of take things in and out. That's what I was thinking.
And think of it as the capacitor decides which frequencies go through them, and the resistor decides how much of that.
Yeah.
So it's like a parametric.
And they're cheap, those kind of little components down at JCar. I think I've seen them. They have trays of them and all.
I'll send you the Henderson one if you want.
Yeah, I think you sent me some already, didn't you? Did
I
you
sent
send
you
in
the
that
old
package?
Sir one. Then I got some more information from them about that 120 in series with it. So yeah, if you have,
Man, I love how you're like the biggest nerd with all this stuff. You're like, if anybody's gonna go to find out, like, I want to know values, I want to know where they are. You're the guy that
I
always
want to
does that
hear what it
research.
sounds like. That's the thing, because you, like I said, you can talk
Exactly. Yeah.
about it all day, but till you actually do it, and you don't just do it because some other guitar player is doing it. His values may be
Exactly.
what's good for him, and then you kind of have to. So I did go back and forth a little bit, and I found, okay, cool. At least that's a good place to start. You can always tweak from there.
And someone's specific touch too. Like you mentioned Annie Timmons, he has a very specific kind of way of playing that's very different. His touch on the instrument is quite different from almost anyone I've ever seen. So I'm curious about that bass plate you talked about, Glyn, underneath. So it does seems to make quite a difference, doesn't it? Because I've never liked Strat pickups that much either in the bridge position. To me, if any pickup can become picky, it's that one. And so I'm curious, by doing that, you've now made it fatter, broader, bigger, and probably that's probably the solution for a lot of people with Strat. If they don't like the Strat bridge pickup, is to have something like that. So being a hotter pickup than the other two, it still seems like it balances. When you're going to the neck pickup, Warren, it doesn't sound to me like you're going to a different guitar. Because that's one of the things I find. If people overwind that bridge too much, it's sort of, you go to the neck pickup and all of a sudden it's like it's just a different guitar. But they seem to still balance really well. Any reason for that, Glyn, or is it just
Yeah,
because they're all Strat
I
single coil pickups?
spent a long time mucking about with it to get it right. No, because the bridge pickup needs to be hotter. Basically, the string deflects less down that end, and you've got less frequencies to deal with. Neck pickups are interesting because because a neck pickup can get lost in the swamp as well. If you give it too much bottom end, then as soon as your drum and bass player starts, then you evaporate. Yeah. So you've got to always keep as much clarity as you possibly can in the neck, I think. But yeah, the bridge needs. I mean, the kind of rough rule of thumb is about 15% hotter in the bridge, but that's just a rough thing, You've just got to go out and muck about with it. I've gigged with this set quite a lot, and it was at a time when we were swapping drummers a lot too, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I love that you do that. That you actually go out and test this stuff and go and play it. And get it in the hands of people like Warren, who are real players doing it. I think sometimes with these things, it feels to me like a lot of companies are just sort of, copying what a PAF does, and they use the same wire, same magnet, and then put it out. Whereas you're actually getting out and gigging it. I think that's super cool, man.
I think especially for the bottom end, you need to know because it's easy to make them too boomy, and when you're playing with another guitarist and a bass player, if you're too boomy, you really notice loud, and you kind of don't necessarily notice when you're quiet.
Yeah, exactly, because everything changes at volume, doesn't it? Your perception of bottom end, your perception of of sound generally. Fletcher Munson curve, is that what they call it?
The louder you listen, the more lows and highs are perceivable to you. Which is why
That's why I play really loud on all my gigs, because
Exactly. Otherwise,
I heard a great thing the other day. Someone said to Robin Ford, "Man, you play really loud," and he said, "It's not my fault. The guitar's a loud instrument."
yeah, well,
I was like, yeah,
they
you
made
can
it
turn it down,
electric so you could play it loud. That was like the whole reason the electric guitar was invented. I mean, if you wanted to play like bedroom volume, just strum your acoustic guitar. That's bedroom volume. Even sometimes, I'm sure some people would complain that that's too loud. So.
Man, it's interesting. The times I've spent in LA and around London and places like that, people play way louder than they play in New Zealand generally. I mean, I remember going to the Baked Potato, I was telling you about it, and seeing Michael Landau play. He had a super reverb, dimed. He had his Hot Rod DeVille thing, whatever it is, the Michael Landau Fender signature, dimed. And they had two microphones in the PA system. And the Baked Potato's only small, And man, it was one of the most glorious guitar sounds I've ever heard. He didn't play loud all the time. It wasn't like he went, okay, I'm just going to be like obnoxious. He was like, when he played quiet, it was like you could whisper over it. But when they played loud, it just went through the roof. You know what I mean? In terms of dynamics, it was amazing.
Here's a thing I found, like when you play loud, you have to kind of almost like control a raging beast. Okay, so there's like two frequencies. Like one is like the high mids around 2.53 kilohertz, something like, just probably around 3.5 is, I think, what the resonant frequency of a human eardrum is. So that's kind of what we're most susceptible to, like, hearing as pain frequencies. So you kind of chill that bit out, and then you kind of look at your low mid woof on the muddy frequencies. If you keep those two bits under control, then you can actually turn the volume up and not, make people uncomfortable. And very often I find people dial their sounds at like home volumes, and then they take the same sounds to a gig and just turn up the volume and expect it to work. No, it's a totally different game. So you kind of have to get used to playing at that volume with preferably a drummer, and I tend to match the volume to the drummer usually. Let them set the volume, and if they loud, I'll play loud, and if they play soft, I'll play soft. And obviously acoustically we're all balanced on stage. But if you're getting into that environment where you have to actually control that whole thing, and then the volume knob becomes your best friend. It's almost like the focus on a camera, like how much do you want to zoom in on whatever. But like different shades of gain, and like different amounts of dirt and stuff, all from that volume knob, and to an extent the tone knobs as well. That becomes a big part of it.
So I'm curious, if you've made that bridge pickup in that guitar, made the magnetic field wider, does that mean it's more susceptible to pick up noise, like in the same way that a P90 seems to be very susceptible to pick up noise?
No,
just do.
No, we're talking magnetic fields here, not so it won't be affected by. It's no more hum.
No more hum or noise. Okay, that's interesting.
The winding that'll be affected by hum. So that's what'll.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had to kind of think about that again, because this guitar, if I go to something like this,
yeah,
and I've got to think about that again, which is something I haven't kind of thought about for a while. But I saw this thing of John Cordy the other day, which was interesting. I don't know if you guys know him, the British guitar player, YouTuber. He said he was having mega problems with a Strat with hum, and what he did was he plugged a wireless system in, just a cheap wireless system, and all of a sudden the noise was significantly less, because now there's nothing kind of connecting cable wise to his pedals and stuff, and it brought the hum down a lot. And I thought, that's an interesting thing. I hadn't thought about that, right? Because the guitar is wirelessly connected now rather than cable connected.
Yeah, it could be a grounding thing, that he just lifted the ground between the amp and the guitar, because in terms of picking up noise, I don't think that would change it.
But that's what you're doing by using the wireless system, right? You're taking there's no hardwire connection anymore. It's sending signal, right?
Yeah, it's picking up hum from all sorts of places though. Like the winding will pick up and act like an antenna and pick up all sorts of literally cosmic background radiation, even although that's a very small percentage of it. But it'll pick up any electromagnetic interference because it's a coil of wire. Shielding the guitar makes a massive difference.
Does it change the sound of a guitar when you shield it though?
Yeah, tiny bit.
Some people say it does, but
you've sort of built yourself a capacitor in a way, because we got an earth plate and you've got. But it's, I don't know, what are your experience? You're nodding away there.
It's basically taking out all those tinkly things right on the top in a way. I think. Because I know Sir does this thing with a dummy coil at the back, which is just an open coil, but then that's kind of flipped out of phase with the actual pickup, so the hum gets cancelled like a normal humbucker would. Like I just heard, I haven't really tried it myself, again second-hand information, but they say like the highs become a little less open or whatever. It's the same thing like with you put that the aluminum plate you get behind that. I think that makes a big difference in controlling the hum, but it also loses a little bit of the extreme top end. It just matters how sensitive you are to that sort of thing. I can get by with it. In fact, like a little bit of a high-end loss, I think in a Strat situation is probably a bit of a good thing.
And just turn the presence control up, right? If you want a little more top in, right?
Did you hear what Joe Bonamassa's reaction was to the what happens with the hum with all this vintage gear that you use? He said, we amplify it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he gets away with a lot of shit though that nobody else gets away with. You know what I mean? Like, I saw a thing of his rig the other day, and it was something like two tweed twins and maybe a couple of dumbles or whatever it is. And I was like, nobody else gets to play with that. But then that's his whole thing, right?
He's really smart though, because he's got those plexiglass shields in front of the amp. So at no point is he hammering the front rows, He's playing the big venues, obviously, so the sound is, dispersing. But he's not really playing like open air stages.
Yeah, but it does affect the band, because I know Josh Smith, who plays guitar in his band quite well, and Josh has told me, man, it's like the sound comes up and over that, and it's like sometimes he's swarming the whole band with sound. You know what I mean? But then that's what people are coming to, like, it's his gig, right? People are coming to see Joe, and
they're coming to see him happy, So as long as he's happy, I think that's all that counts.
And even if he played like a reissue 59 burst, it'd probably be, but people want to come and see the burst, right? They want to see the Dumble. They want to, that's part of probably why they're buying tickets. I remember at Josh's studio, he had a bassman there, 59 bassman that was Joe's, and I got to play through that with Josh's guitar, and man, that thing sounded super sweet, because I love bassman amps, and that thing sounded. It was the real deal 59. But Josh's guitars are impossible to play. I mean, he has 13s on a strat, and the action is about a centimetre away from the fretboard. And I'm like, how the hell do you play this at all? Like, I couldn't. It was so tough. You know what I mean? So, that bassman sounded great. But Joe's got gear all around the place that he just loans to people. He's that guy. So, but interesting that he just amplifies the noise, right? I remember Joey Landreth saying that. The great slide player that was something like the pickup hum is like breathing to him. So he says, that's an interesting way of kind of looking at it. Cool. So you've got quite a range of pickups now, Glyn. You've got obviously various shades of humbuckers, various shades of P90s now. You've got mini humbuckers, and you've got a couple of those. The one that you made for my Talman, which is there, and you've got now a hotter version of that too. What don't you have? What have you not done?
Oh, it's an amazingly big subject. And when you start off, you go, I make a Strat and a Telly and a humbucker. Then you go, oh, yeah, no, I need one of these as well. Oh, what about jazz? I need to make a Jazzmaster.
I guess Jaguar, right? Or Jazzmaster.
Yeah, and off you go, and I haven't even thought about Rickenbacker yet. What's in the pipeline is a gold foil.
Oh, nice.
I was actually going to say, gold foils seem really popular right now.
Yeah, and there's gold foil. I mean, obviously, how do you define gold foil? I mean, it's a piece of gold foil. But but the Japanese ones and the Tasco type ones and the de-almond, like Rowe Industries de-almond ones are inside quite different. And you can see why some of them have a reputation for being fantastic with some people, and some of them are just like, people, what? I don't get it. Well, it's just because these are two very, very different beasts. So I've got that, and that's I've got a prototype I'm pretty happy with.
So when you say gold foil, what size pickup will it be? Will it be a humbucker size, or more like a mini humbucker size?
It's more like a mini humbucker size, but it's a gold foil size. It's they're a different thing. They're completely different inside. They're a really odd beast.
So would you fit it in what size route? You'd need your own routing for it, would you, or something?
Now with a Strat, because they're thin, but they're still not quite thin enough to get under the strings with a pick guard in there. So if you wanted one in your neck, in the neck, you'd have to just basically get a pick guard and make a hole in it and mount it under that. Same with a Telly. I think as a Telly neck pickup, it makes a lot of sense as well. They're good at that. I was
thinking that.
So there's that. And then, interestingly, at the same time, I'm working on a pickup for extreme metal.
Oh, yeah.
Which is I think.
But you've done one already, though, haven't you?
That's Doom. That's Doom. You see, yeah. So that's much more soggy bottom, to coin a phrase.
Yeah. This one's got to be fast attack, right?
Dry, immediate. that bottom end that you guys would both hate, because it's good. There's no wallowing in the warmth of the bottom end. It's got to be punching.
Also, if you're using like really heavy gauge strings, I guess you don't want a pickup that puts out a ton of bottom end just to balance it out.
You have to take. It needs bottom end, and it has to be tame, but it has to, like you said, it's got to be absolutely immediate.
Yeah.
You've got to only even think about touching that string, and it punches you in the nose. So that's quite important, and it's got to sit in a really, really difficult mix.
Yeah,
because you're talking situations where the drummer is way too busy.
Yeah, exactly. The double kick thing that some of them do, right?
It's fascinating hearing, because it's not a style of music that I am really into. So there's somebody I'm working with on this whose taste I'm using.
Oh, right.
Because it's not my world. I can't make that sound, and I don't know if I'm right or not. It's not me. So, and I do this with a few pickups. I've used test pilots for things.
Well, the alien weaponry guy, right?
Yeah.
That you made pickup with, right?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's more similar to that. Yeah. It's very interesting.
So this will be a hot pickup, or are you thinking like somewhere it will be hot?
It's hot, but the actual K ohms are very low. Or by very low, they're about 9 on the current prototype.
Which is low for a metal pickup.
Yeah, because what I'm doing is I'm trying to get the EQ with the coil, and then getting all the punch out of too much magnetism going on underneath.
Yeah. Is that the one that you showed the diagram of you had, this is what sometimes planning looks like or something in a picture? I saw that and I thought, oh, that's interesting. Like it kind of looked like a little radiator heat thing or something.
No, that's the gold foil.
Oh, that's the gold foil.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The gold foil used to go with that pedal steel or lap steel pickup as well. Most people have that Kuda caster thing. So they've got one gold foil in the neck, and it's basically the old Rai Kuda thing. I think Blake Mills also has got one on a strap.
I was going to say it's super trendy with like Blake Mills and people like that, Ariel Posen and guitar players of that kind of style, which interesting too with that metal thing. You'll probably find that it'd be quite popular, because I remember talking to Richie Allen about it, and he was saying a lot of, because I did some workshops with Richie, they said jazz versus metal, and it's like I wasn't doing jazz anyway at it, but maybe there are jazz elements of it, and he was like, well, I'm not really doing metal, I'm doing more rock, but nonetheless he was saying that for him he preferred like lower output pickups, not high, not because of the tightness that you get on it. So you might find that pickup having the tighter bottom end might be exactly what a lot of that crew are looking for.
Yeah. See, no one these days has a shortage of gain. Yeah.
Exactly.
You can the world, and those guys were very, very early adopters of all the modeling stuff. In fact, I remember your brother, and it was probably in fact, I remember what year it was, because I was handing a guitar back to him that I'd repaired, and I said, mate, through the amp, it's great. And I remember him going, amp, dude, it's 2016. No one uses amps anymore. So it's they were very early adopters of that. So the idea is the EQ's got to be right, but it also does need some punch, because some of those guys still are using 5150s or whatever. So it can't be feeble. But it's got to have that punch. And a lot of it is in the feel of how it feels to play that.
I remember you and I having that conversation one time that so something that's not discussed with pickups is like, what does it feel like under the fingers? And because that was one of the things with that mini humbucker that you really got right with that guitar for me, was that the mini humbucker thing, it felt like it should. Do you know what I mean? And that's something that's almost never discussed. Same with these. This feels like I said, it still feels like a P90. It's still pushing pretty hard. Right? It's got enough there, but it just feels to me like a P90 slightly shifted. But it's the feel under the fingers. It's so critical, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing, I think it's not talked about much because you can't demo it.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be, as a sort of beginner player, you don't get that. You have to be able to play to a certain extent to actually feel that. which is why, if I gave Warren a telly now, he wouldn't play it the same as he'd play his Les Paul or whatever, because you can't, it just makes you do different stuff, and it's not even conscious.
Yeah.
But beginners are always trying to impose their will on things, and that they probably don't quite get that feel from a pickup.
Totally. Interesting. I was watching Tom Bukovac today, who I'm sure you both know, and he was talking about how he can pick up a guitar instantly and go, nah, it's not happening. Or like 1 second, he said he knows, sometimes without even playing a note, if it's a good guitar or not a good guitar. He says just because he's been doing it for so long and he's had all of the classics. He's got 3 bursts, and he's had everything. And he said beginners always ask him, like, what should I buy? And he always tells them, because you don't know shit yet, first thing you do is just buy one you like the look of.
Which is exactly what I did. I just got a strat that I was like, I like the way that looks, and then just went with it,
Because that's going to be inspiring when you start. And I thought that was brilliant. I've never heard anybody say that. Just buy the one that you like the look of.
Because you've got to want to pick it up, haven't you? You've got to desire it. It's there in the corner, and you've got to want to play it.
Yeah.
So if you don't,
and you probably don't know the difference, but like Warren would know. Like with Warren, if you gave him a set of 10s and then a 10.5 gauge strings, totally would feel it straight away, right? You would go, this is different, whereas a beginner probably, that much difference is so subtle. But you're right, it comes down to, the feel thing is, I guess it's hard thing to talk about on market, isn't it? But to me, it's so important when I'm thinking about pickups, and kind of what I want a guitar to do.
Yeah. But also there's that adapting, like proper players will instantly in real time adapt to a different feeling.
Like you can give me the worst sound in the world, and instinctively your hands kind of start moving in different ways to make it sound good, or to get something usable out of it. Like case in point is like that wide open bridge pickup. I wouldn't start picking closer to the bridge. I'll be like more like something like that. I'll play with my fingers. Just warm it up, and now it sounds fine. But if I just start doing all those frequencies come on, and like, oh, I don't like that, So it's almost subconscious at this point. Even like I had this guitar with me, and I had to play like some almost like chugga. First thing I do is probably just roll the tone knob down a bit, just to give it a bit more whoomp. And you kind of get the guitar to kind of do what you want it to do, but it's also a combination of where you set it, what gear you like is further down the line, and how your hands hit the instrument.
I like what Glyn said too a minute ago about instead of forcing your will upon it, you work with it and you sort of mold to make it work, right? Yeah, I totally agree. That's cool. Super cool. So how did you get into the pickup business, Glyn? Because I knew you were a repairer. You probably saw a lot of pickups across your bench, but at one point you sort of went from doing that stuff to I'm only doing pickups now, right?
Well,
which is pretty cool.
I started off in the 90s, and I went to college to learn guitar repair and guitar making, and then ended up teaching in a college in the UK, teaching guitar making. And I always wound pickups then, but you had to make it up then, because there was no books, and there was just lots of old dead 70s Strat pickups around, and nobody cared about them because they were worthless then. They're just old dead pickups. So there was lots of those about that I could rewind and mess with. And anyway, and then I got into repair because and I made a living out of that for years. But then it was more like, because I live out on the end of the world, out in Muriwai.
That's beautiful.
It's a beautiful place. It's beautiful, yeah. But you're just about to fall off the edge of the world. There are sea monsters out there and what have you. But driving into the city was becoming a bit of a big deal. And I was like, I'd like to work from home, but I don't really think people were prepared to drive out here for repairs. And I've been planning this since 2012 and starting the range of pickups and just slowly doing it more and more and more. And then COVID happened. It's like, well, I've got to jump now. So I just got rid of the workshop in the city straight away and took everything out of the workshop and moved it home in 2 days flat.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I had a mate help. It's like the back signal went up and Mikey was there too, and we had trailers and anyway. And then and so I spent that first lockdown setting up a workshop up from home. and setting up a website and that. But I had the core of the range already there. You know, I had like 2 Strat pickups and 2 Tally pickups, and I had a couple of humbuckers all done and all tested. So that was my shift. And really, from a personal point of view, what I've ended up doing is swapping 6 hours a week in the car for 6 hours a week on the beach with the dog. So that's how I start my day now.
And man, isn't that a better life balance, isn't it? Right, like sitting in cars is not much fun, isn't it? Especially in Auckland, because Auckland is, as you both know, pretty tricky with traffic. So doing that. So now moving to your workshop you've got now, you're fully set up. How many pickups would you make in a day? Out of curiosity.
It depends on the orders. It depends on the orders. You know, when I have lots of orders in, I make lots of pickups. But like today, I didn't really make any pickups. It's
everything's to order.
No, not necessarily. Yes and no. I have a lot of stuff pre-wound. So I know I've got, of the 3 like soap bar P90s I know I've got 2 sets wound ready to go, but they haven't got base plates on and they haven't got covers or anything like that. Because those are, because they could go dog ear or soap bar, you know.
Right.
So they're not finished, but the coils are wound. So I have some in stock. But it's like with any job, what people think you do all day isn't actually what you do most of the time, you know.
Yeah, I can imagine so.
Like I did a lot of work on the website today, and I was doing some jigs I've been designing and sticking on the 3D printer, and so there's you know, there's a lot of stuff. Other stuff. So there's not really a how many do you do? And when I do them, I try and do them in batches.
Right.
So if someone orders, so if somebody orders a P90 set and that's the last set I have, then I'll make 3 or 4 sets. You know, and one goes to the customer and the other ones are in stock. So I can turn stuff around. The website says I've got a 10-day turnaround. It's actually way quicker than that. But don't actually tell anyone that, because I need to have an easy life as well.
Yeah. If you're away on holiday for a week or something, you don't want to be like, I have to make the 10 days. You know what I mean?
And people get sick, you know, and
exactly.
Sometimes you go, I need to do something else, but you know, so it's nice to have that. I build that little bit of slack in for myself, which is nice. You know? And also a lot of my orders are international, which is nice now too. Probably about 30 or 40% of my orders go overseas.
Brilliant. I got to say, one thing I was most impressed with that you sent me, I've got it like here, and I see it every single day.
See, mine's still there as well.
Oh, you've got one.
Yeah. This is brilliant, right? Because it like flat packs in your thing, and it's a pick holder. I'm assuming that's what it's meant to be used for, because that's what I used it for. But I guess you laser cut these or something, or whatever you did. But I was like, that's brilliant. It's so good. And it sits there every single day. And I couldn't tell you how many times it's overfilled and flowing out. And then I'll go to get something and I'll be careless and I'll knock it over and they go over and I go, shit. But it's so handy having this on your desk with a stack of picks. It's brilliant.
Or in my case, everything from like a USB drive to some resistors, to adapters. It's like, mine's been like how many years I got that from you? It's like duct taped and everything.
It's about 5 years. Do you want another one?
I should probably get another one of you.
How nerdy I am! I even have glow in the dark side dots sitting on my desk, waiting to be installed in a particular guitar. And I'll get to it one day.
Do you need them yet?
Do you
need them yet? Because there will be a point.
No, the theatre shows especially. So I just did We Will Rock You, and the 17th song, which was Who Wants to Live Forever. They were like, we want you to come down from the band stage, down the stairs, round onto the stage, and we're going to put a flight case down there, and we want you to jump up on top of the flight case, and then we'll open the curtains out, and there'll be a spotlight on you playing the solo with the 2 actors in the front, right? And so I'm like, so I can't see shit, like nothing. So I'm literally going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my starting note, and I play my first note, and I go, and then my next note was an F note, and so I'm like, I think that's an F. If I'd had glow in the dark dots, I'd at least stood a chance. You know what I mean? The other thing too with those gigs too is hum. in the theatre shows is the worst, you know, because the sound guys always run cables over your pedal board. There's lighting everywhere. There's just so much crap, and so that's partly why I think I mentioned with my AZ guitar, you made me a bridge pickup for it, and I went with noiseless pickups there because if I use that guitar, I use it on shows. And it's just noise is a real problem. Yeah, but literally you can't see the guitar. Like I can't see the guitar at all. It's quite scary to have to play and not be able to see it. And then I played that solo, and then I had to jump off this flight case, and then I was still playing all the rhythm guitar parts to get back up the top and into the thing. So I'm on a wireless system, wireless ears, wireless guitar, walking while playing, you know, trying to get all these parts. This sort of stuff. Like walking, you know, through going upstairs while trying to play. And the actors were getting in the way constantly because they're in their own world. So I couldn't get through them. So one night I just went like get them out of the way. Because they're in their own world. So then they kind of realized, and they actually allocated a guy to walk me back, and he would like literally go, get out of the way, you know, and to get me back because I had to play, you know, well, and get back up into the set for the right moment. But yeah, so it's not my vision just yet. That's why I need.
Right.
How easy would it be for him to put a dummy coil to get rid of the noise on that?
I don't know. Where are you going to put it?
Yeah, that's the thing. Where?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the noise is not really a problem because it's sort of. It just is what it is, you know. And this guitar, I'm not going to use this on a theatre show. To me, this is a character guitar that I might use it for one or two tunes like that. But those sort of shows, usually you don't have time to swap guitars very often. So generally you want a humbucker and some kind of single coil so you can do generally. So they're doing Mamma Mia next year, I've heard. Whether I do the gig or not, we'll see if they can fork out with the bread for it. But the that show will be literally humbucker single coil pretty much all night, right? Could probably do it on this, but yeah, I'm more likely to use this. To me, this feels like a blues guitar. That's kind of every time I want to play this, I want to play the blues, you know. Sort of has that, especially this. Even. You know what I mean? I feel like playing that sort of music when I play this, so that's what I'll be using this one for.
Yeah, P90s work with amplifiers like that, don't they? They just want you to do that because they're so touch sensitive.
Yeah, they got a little deluxe reverb at the Blues Club in Wellington, so that's as Warren knows, he's played there and played that amp. So if it's actually working and in place, then that's probably the amp I'd take down to go and use with this guitar. So yeah.
Is the middle coil reverse polarity, reverse bound? So at least you have some hum cancelling options.
Yeah, so you can see that one's dead quiet. And actually, my favorite setting is those two. I like that more than. So yeah, I'd probably do a whole gig and just leave it there.
Have you got just one tone control for all the pickups?
Yeah, just one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is how this came. And actually, I got the wrong pot, so it's sitting really high for some reason. It's got a long shaft pot. But yeah, one tone, one volume. Pretty simple. Orange drop cap I put in there that I had lying around from years ago.
Here's a question I have. Do you think apart from the value, the actual type of capacitor you use for a tone of... I'd like to hear your...
Right, and I'd like to hear your opinion too, because I guess you've experimented, because I have. Yeah. I made a little box, right, when I was repairing guitars, that had two 250K for like a volume and tone 250K and a 500K, and I had a 5-way switch at the end, which switched between different capacitors.
Right.
And they were varied from genuine, really old ones, like 60s ones, going through to the cheap Chinese and all that. And I lent the box to a few proper players, with them promising not to open the box and to tell me what they preferred. And each came back with a different answer.
Really?
Yeah. And
so it's probably dependent on the type of guitar that's running with, right?
Yes, but also the old ones, you look at them and they're like plus or minus 15-20%, you know, so they're not. You're saying it's 0.022, but it's kind of the Chinese one was way closer. But yeah, so in that were modern, oil and paper and orange drop and cheap ones. But yeah, I got a different answer from everyone. My own opinion when I've done experiments with myself is I don't really hear anything different.
Yeah. My answer is, if knowing that you've got some special capacitors makes you play better, then more power to you, So
Yeah, exactly.
that's one way of putting it, because you can't really
a little bit
take
of snake oil, really,
yeah,
isn't it?
you can't
Snake
take
oil.
out the psychological thing. If you know that, oh, I've got something special, and you actually believe it to be true, it's going to make you, play, differently to saying I've got
Totally, yeah.
cheap ceramic capacitors in. But I think it's down to the tolerance and the actual value of the capacitor that makes more of a difference. Because like on the Les Paul, I've got, on the SG, I've got a 0.015 in the neck, and 0.022 on the bridge. So the neck tone rolls off a bit more gently. So those sort of things, like there's a lot of fun to be had in playing around with different values and so on and so forth. But I don't really know if there are any, because all it does, it's basically sending your signal to ground, certain frequency, sending it to ground. So it's actually not in the active audio path. It's like the stuff that you discard. And it's like almost like saying, oh, I bought this corn from the supermarket, and the husk, is really nice on this one, but you're actually eating the corn, you're not eating the husk, so
Right.
that's
But
one way of
the
putting
It's
it.
interesting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So the psychological thing is funny because Warren said to me earlier before we went on air, he said, "Oh yeah, if you'd put different color covers on that Strat, I'd have played it differently."
Yeah, they look
Red
they look a
goes
bit newer
faster,
to
They're a
me.
right?
bit white up there. Yeah, sorry, mate. I should have. Yeah, vintage covers, and then yeah.
Well, thanks so much, everyone, for coming. It's awesome to have Glyn on with us today, the Jedi Master of guitar pickups and all goodness like that. Seemed appropriate when both Warren and I have new guitars with new pickups in them to sort of talk to the maker himself. I love that we have someone like Glyn and all these people like this, Ben Fulton and people like this who are local people who are doing great work. So 100% support from me. So thank you very much for watching, and subscribe to Warren's YouTube channel if you haven't already, because he pays me money every time you subscribe. So thanks very much. We'll see you next week.